Hello Dub Nation, it's always a thrill to connect with you, especially as we're about to reveal the latest news that could shape the fate of our beloved Golden State Warriors. But before we dive into this whirlwind of information, let me make a friendly request. Show us some love by clicking the like button to strengthen our bond, and hey, if you are not subscribed yet, join our channel for a thrilling and emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications to stay ahead of the game.
Jonathan Kuminga turned down a $45 million offer from the Warriors, and he had a powerful reason why, unlike 10 other NBA players. Jonathan Kuminga is not afraid to go against the grain, and he just proved it. While many players in the NBA have quietly accepted team-friendly deals during restricted free agency, Kuminga made a bold move. He rejected a 2-year, $45 million offer from the Golden State Warriors. Why? Because he wants more than just money. He wants control over his future. It's not that the Warriors didn't try. They made a solid offer, above the qualifying amount, to keep their young forward. But Kuminga stood his ground. He's aiming for a contract that pays him around $30 million per year, and more importantly, one that respects his long-term value and decision-making power. The key issue: control over his career. According to NBA insider Mark Stein, there were two main sticking points that led Kuminga to turn down the deal. First, he didn't want a team option on the second year of the contract, a clause that would leave his future entirely in the Warriors' hands. Second, and most crucial, Kuminga refused to give up his no-trade rights in the first year. He knows the Warriors have explored trade possibilities, and he wants a say in where he plays next. Without that clause, he'd be signing away his ability to choose his path, something he's not willing to do. When a player signs a one-year deal with a team they finish the season with, they automatically gain veto power over trades, due to bird rights, Stein explained. But a 2-year deal with a team or player option, like the one Golden State offered Kuminga, is essentially treated the same as a 1-year deal in that context. In short, the Warriors' offer would have stripped Kuminga of control without giving him long-term security. That's a deal he just couldn't accept. Most players gave in, but not Kuminga. Mark Stein and cap expert Keith Smith compiled a list of 10 NBA players who agreed to deals this offseason that included waiving their no-trade protection, the same protection Kuminga refused to give up. This shows a growing trend among NBA teams, pushing for flexibility and control, even at the expense of the player's agency. But Kuminga? He's standing alone, pushing back. He's not trying to be difficult. He's trying to do something most athletes struggle with: protect their future. High stakes for both sides. This standoff is already taking a toll. The Warriors, still uncertain about Kuminga's situation, have paused any major off-season moves. No signings, no trades. Meanwhile, Kuminga has had to miss out on representing the Congolese national team due to the uncertainty surrounding his contract. It's clear that both sides would benefit from finding a solution soon. But whatever happens next, one thing is certain. Jonathan Kuminga is betting on himself, and he's doing it on his own terms. A bold stand that's shaking up the off-season. Kuminga's stance hasn't just affected contract negotiations, it's created a ripple effect across the NBA. League executives are watching closely. The Warriors are a franchise known for developing homegrown talent and making shrewd business decisions. For a young player like Kuminga to challenge their structure so publicly, it's making waves. Multiple insiders believe this contract standoff is also impacting Golden State's broader off-season strategy. With Kuminga's future uncertain, the Warriors have hit the pause button. Key decisions, trades, free agent signings, roster planning, are now on hold as the front office tries to navigate the situation. It's not just about dollars anymore, it's about direction. According to The Athletic, rival teams are monitoring Kuminga's status, sensing an opportunity. Some are even preparing potential trade packages in case things completely break down in San Francisco. It's clear, Kuminga has leverage, and other franchises know it. A turning point in player empowerment? While 10 other NBA players have already agreed to waive their trade veto rights this offseason, Kuminga is setting a different tone, one that could influence how younger stars handle negotiations moving forward. In an era increasingly defined by player empowerment, his refusal to accept a deal that limits his control is both risky and symbolic. He's not just fighting for a bigger paycheck, he's fighting for autonomy, transparency, and respect. And that hasn't gone unnoticed. Fans are split. Some applaud Kuminga's courage, calling it a long overdue move by a rising star to assert his value. Others believe he's overplaying his hand and risking both his future and the team's cohesion. The debate is lighting up social media, podcasts, and sports talk shows, placing Kuminga in the center of an unexpected off-season drama. What's next? So where do things go from here? There are three main paths the situation could take. The Warriors meet Kuminga halfway, offering a modified deal with better guarantees and fewer restrictive clauses. Kuminga holds out longer, potentially missing training camp or forcing the team's hand in a trade. A sign-and-trade deal materializes, giving Kuminga a fresh start elsewhere and Golden State some compensation. The clock is ticking. The NBA preseason is approaching, and both sides are feeling the pressure. But Kuminga, by all accounts, isn't flinching. His message is loud and clear. I'm not just playing for today, I'm planning for the long game. And whether he's wearing a Warriors jersey or not come opening night, Jonathan Kuminga has already changed the conversation around what young players can, and should, demand in the modern NBA. The trade is almost done, Jonathan Kuminga nearing move to Sacramento Kings after major update. The Jonathan Kuminga, Golden State Warriors saga has quietly become one of the biggest storylines of this NBA offseason, and it looks like we're finally approaching the endgame. After years of showing flashes of brilliance, Kuminga is ready to take the next step in his career. He's no longer content being a rotational piece on a stacked Warriors team. He wants a larger role, a fresh start, and a real chance to become an all-star. And now, it seems that opportunity might be waiting for him in Sacramento. Kuminga turns down $45 million, keeps his eyes on the future. In a move that turned heads around the league, Kuminga turned down a 2-year, $45 million extension from Golden State. Why? Because he knew something bigger could be on the horizon. Both the Sacramento Kings and the Phoenix Suns have shown serious interest in the 21-year-old forward. And now, the Kings appear to be just one final move away from landing him in a sign-and-trade deal with the Warriors. NBA insider Evan Sidery reported that the trade is essentially at the finish line. If the Kings lift the protection on their 2030 first-round pick being offered to Golden State, the deal for Kuminga will be completed, Sidery tweeted. All signs point to Kuminga heading to Sacramento as the likely outcome. What would Kuminga's role be in Sacramento? If the deal goes through, Kuminga would immediately step into a starting role with the Kings, and not just as a role player. He's expected to become their third scoring option, playing behind All-Stars Domantas Sabonis and the newly acquired Zach LaVine. This would also mean Keegan Murray moves to the bench, as Sacramento's projected starting five would likely include Dennis Schroeder, LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Kuminga, and Sabonis. That lineup brings speed, athleticism, and serious scoring power, a team that may not be a title favorite yet, but one that absolutely has the tools to make a playoff push in the loaded Western Conference. Why this move matters? For Kuminga and the Kings. For Jonathan Kuminga, this is more than just a change of scenery. It's a chance to redefine his career. After being drafted with high expectations and spending years behind stars like Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, Kuminga now has the opportunity to show what he's truly capable of with the ball in his hands and freedom to grow. For the Kings, it's a statement. After years of being on the fringe, they're not just building, they're aiming to compete now. With the additions of LaVine, DeRozan, and potentially Russell Westbrook, who is also reportedly on Sacramento's radar following Malik Monk's departure, the Kings are clearly going all in. A win-win deal in the making? Golden State gets future flexibility and a valuable pick. Sacramento gets a rising star ready to break out. Kuminga gets what he's been asking for all along, a real shot to lead. The deal isn't official yet, but momentum is building fast. And if the final details fall into place, don't be surprised to see Jonathan Kuminga in a Kings jersey very soon, finally stepping into the spotlight he's been chasing from the start. A franchise turning point, and a career-defining moment. For the Sacramento Kings, acquiring Kuminga isn't just about boosting their roster, it's about shifting their identity. Over the past decade, Sacramento has struggled to retain top-tier talent and shake off the image of a team stuck in rebuild mode. But this offseason has sent a clear message: those days are over. With Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and potentially Kuminga in the mix, the Kings are moving aggressively, not just to make the playoffs, but to matter again in the Western Conference. And for Jonathan Kuminga, this move could be career-defining. Still only 21, Kuminga has already shown flashes of elite two-way potential, explosive athleticism, high defensive IQ, and the ability to score in transition and isolation. What he hasn't had: A team fully invested in unlocking his ceiling. In Sacramento, he would finally have that. Under head coach Mike Brown, who knows Kuminga well from their shared time in Golden State, he could flourish. Brown has already shown he can maximize young talent while maintaining structure. With a starting role, consistent minutes, and offensive freedom, Kuminga could finally make his long-anticipated leap. The Warriors gamble, letting go of a future star? Meanwhile, the Golden State Warriors are facing tough questions. Letting Kuminga walk, especially after he showed growth last season, averaging over 16 points per game post-All-Star break, could come back to haunt them. Insiders close to the organization report that the front office was divided on how to handle Kuminga's demands. Some felt he deserved a larger role and more trust. Others prioritized keeping financial flexibility and maintaining trade leverage in case bigger moves presented themselves. Now they may lose a potential future All-Star for a protected draft pick in cap relief, and the fanbase has taken notice. Online forums, Warriors Reddit threads, and local Bay Area radio have all lit up with frustration over the team's reluctance to commit to youth. With Klay Thompson gone and the dynasty era fading, Kuminga was viewed by many as the bridge to the next chapter. Losing him now feels like closing that book early. A possible ripple effect across the league. The Kuminga Kings deal, once finalized, could have broader consequences across the league. Player empowerment on the rise. Kuminga's refusal to accept a deal without control over his future, no trade clause, team option, could set a new precedent for younger players. He's showing that even non-all-stars can negotiate from a position of strength, if they're willing to bet on themselves. Trade dominoes incoming. Once the Kings finalize this move, don't be surprised if they go all in on Russell Westbrook to solidify their backcourt. And other teams may follow suit, adjusting their strategies in response to Sacramento's sudden rise. Free agency dynamics changing. Kuminga's standoff has also highlighted a shift in how players value control versus security. His case could influence future restricted free agents to hold out for more favorable terms, even at the risk of short-term discomfort. Final thoughts. A new chapter begins. At its core, this is more than a trade. It's the story of a young player refusing to settle, and a team bold enough to believe in his potential. If the deal is finalized in the coming days, Jonathan Kuminga will walk into the 2025-26 season not as a role player or a bench piece, but as a centerpiece in Sacramento's long-awaited basketball revival. And for both him and the Kings, that could be the start of something far bigger than anyone expected. Warriors make their stance on Moses Moody clear amid free agency rumors. Amid swirling off-season speculation, one thing has become crystal clear. The Golden State Warriors believe in Moses Moody. As the team works through the uncertainty surrounding Jonathan Kuminga, reports have surfaced about Golden State targeting veteran free agents Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton. But notably absent from their wish list? A new wing. Why? Because despite earlier rumors suggesting the Warriors were in the market for a shooting guard or small forward, the front office appears to have made a firm decision. Moses Moody is their guy. Betting on Moody, not the market. While the Warriors explored potential options early in the offseason, the wing market didn't break in their favor. Names like Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Duncan Robinson were floated but quickly signed elsewhere. Rather than overpay or settle, Golden State looked inward and found their answer. Moody's shooting struggles late last season raised eyebrows. But they've been overshadowed by his growth, maturity, and flashes of true two-way potential. The message from the team? They're not giving up on him. In fact, they're doubling down. A promising season, injuries and all. Still just 23, Moody quietly had a strong fourth season with the Warriors. After Golden State traded for Jimmy Butler and moved on from several rotation players, including longtime starter Andrew Wiggins, Moody stepped up. In 34 starts, he averaged 11 points, 3.1 rebounds, and 1.6 assists per game, shooting a solid 39.4% from three-point range. His presence on the court brought spacing, energy, and a willingness to defend, all critical elements as the Warriors fought for a playoff spot in a hyper-competitive Western Conference. But when the playoffs rolled around, things took a turn. Moody struggled from deep, hitting just 33.3% of his threes, and lost his starting spot after Game 2 of the opening series. Fans and analysts began to question whether he could truly hold up under postseason pressure. Then came the real twist. It was later revealed that Moody had been playing through a torn UCL in his thumb, which required surgery in the offseason. Suddenly, the inconsistencies made more sense. The Warriors are committed, And Moody's got next. Now healthy and entering the first year of his 3-year, $37.5 million extension, Moody is positioned to take over the starting wing role, if he can stay consistent and bounce back strong. The Warriors clearly see him as more than just a role player. They see him as a potential 3-and-D cornerstone, the kind of versatile wing every contending team covets. With limited cap space and few alternatives left on the market, Golden State's quiet move might be their boldest, putting their full trust in the development of Moses Moody. While all eyes are on how the team will finalize deals for Horford and Melton, make no mistake, Moody is part of the long-term blueprint. His playoff dip didn't shake the organization's belief in his potential. If anything, it strengthened their resolve to let him grow into the player they know he can be. A strategic pivot, and a vote of confidence. By standing firm behind Moses Moody, the Warriors are making a clear statement. This offseason isn't about panic. It's about patience. While rival teams made flashy moves, overpaid in free agency, or emptied their future for short-term upgrades, Golden State is taking a different approach. They're betting on continuity, internal development, and players who know their system. This isn't just about Moody's upside. It's also about the Warriors' evolving identity in the post-dynasty era. With Klay Thompson gone and Draymond Green entering the twilight of his career, the front office is slowly transitioning to a new generation. Moody, Kuminga, pending trade or not, Brandon Podziemski, and even Tracy Jackson-Davis are expected to form the foundation of what comes next, whether that's alongside Steph Curry or after. So while fans expected a splashy signing on the wing, what they're getting instead is a clear message. Golden State wants to grow from within. What's at stake for Moody? This season will be a major turning point for Moody, not just contractually, but in terms of perception. If he capitalizes on his starting role, especially with defenders stretched thin by Curry and Butler's offensive gravity, he could easily become a reliable 14 to 16 point per game scorer, while guarding the league's best wings on the other end. But if he struggles again, especially in high-leverage situations, the narrative could quickly shift. With his new contract now kicking in, expectations are no longer abstract. He's no longer the young guy waiting his turn. He's the guy. His ability to stretch the floor, defend 1 through 3, and make smart off-ball cuts is exactly what Golden State needs in their new motion-heavy, spacing-first system. And according to team insiders, head coach Steve Kerr has been working closely with Moody this offseason to tighten his handle and improve his decision-making in short roll and transition situations. League reaction: is Moody the real deal? Around the league, there's growing intrigue over Golden State's choice to ride with Moody. Some executives believe the Warriors are being overly optimistic, pointing to his up-and-down playoff performance as a sign that he may cap out as a rotational piece. Others, however, view this as a classic Warriors slow play, similar to how they developed Jordan Poole before his breakout. One anonymous Western Conference scout recently told The Ringer, "He's got the tools, the IQ, and he doesn't force things. It's rare to see that in a young guy. If the Warriors give him 30 minutes a night, I wouldn't be shocked if he becomes a top-tier 3-and-D starter by February." The bigger picture: what this means for the Warriors' direction. By letting the wing market pass them by and instead reinforcing their trust in Moody, the Warriors are subtly redefining their team culture. It's no longer just about chasing titles with veterans. It's about building a team that can evolve, one that balances experience with emerging talent. This approach also gives Golden State more financial flexibility moving forward. Instead of locking up cap space on another mid-tier free agent, they can redirect resources toward bench depth, front-court upgrades, like Al Horford, or future trade flexibility. In a West that's more stacked than ever, every roster decision matters. And while Moses Moody may not be the headline name fans expected to anchor the wing, he's the one the organization is backing, with minutes, money, and belief. One thing is certain. Whether he sinks or soars this season, Moses Moody won't be just a footnote. He'll be at the center of one of the most intriguing bets Golden State has made in years. Golden State Warriors face lose-lose dilemma with Jonathan Kuminga, and it could cost them an All-NBA star. The Golden State Warriors find themselves caught in a tricky, and potentially costly, standoff with rising forward Jonathan Kuminga. According to a former NBA general manager, this is shaping up to be a classic lose-lose situation. And if they're not careful, it could end up costing them the chance to land a future All-NBA talent. Kuminga, still just 22 years old, remains a restricted free agent. While that status technically gives the Warriors control, it hasn't helped them make progress in contract negotiations. In fact, things have stalled completely. So much so that Golden State remains the only team in the league that hasn't signed or re-signed a single player this offseason, despite reports that veteran Al Horford was waiting in the wings to join. The issue? Kuminga turned down a 2-year, $45 million offer from the team and seems intent on betting on himself instead. Behind the scenes, there's growing frustration. Kuminga reportedly feels that the Warriors have held back his development, limiting his minutes and role even as he's shown flashes of star potential. He doesn't seem eager to stay in Golden State, and the tension is now starting to impact their ability to move forward with the off-season. Golden State can't win this, says former GM Bobby Marks. ESPN's Bobby Marks, a former NBA executive, didn't sugarcoat it. It's probably a lose-lose for Golden State. I'm not saying they should panic and offer 3 years, $80 million. But the reality is they're now looking at Kuminga playing next season on a 1-year, $8 million qualifying offer. Why is that a problem? Because the Warriors need Kuminga on a larger contract if they hope to use him in a trade for a superstar. If a player like Giannis Antetokounmpo becomes available, and Golden State wants to make a serious run, they simply won't have the necessary contracts to match salary unless they sacrifice someone like Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler. Marks broke it down. It's a lot easier to trade Kuminga on a $22 million salary than it is at $8 million. You can't stack enough salary unless you start moving your core pieces. That's why a 2-year, $45 million deal would have been the ideal compromise. But it takes two sides to make that work, and Kuminga clearly isn't on board. Kuminga is betting on himself, and the clock is ticking. In a recent Instagram post, Kuminga made his stance clear: "I'll bet on myself all day." His plan now seems to be playing out this season on the $7.9 million qualifying offer, then hitting unrestricted free agency in 2026, when he hopes to command a much bigger payday. It's a bold gamble. There are whispers that teams like the Phoenix Suns and Sacramento Kings have already prepared offers north of $90 million over 4 years. That's a significant jump from the Warriors' 2-year offer, but it's also far from guaranteed. A lot can change in a year. Last season, Kuminga saw limited playoff minutes under Steve Kerr until injuries forced the coach to turn to him, and when that moment came, he delivered. But despite a strong showing in the second round, his long-term role in Kerr's system remains uncertain. If that doesn't change, his numbers, and market value, could stagnate. And here lies the real risk. If Kuminga spends another season buried in the rotation, will those same teams still be eager to throw $90 million his way next summer? The bigger picture: what are the Warriors really losing? Beyond the money and roster mechanics, this saga exposes a deeper issue for the Warriors: a disconnect between a franchise chasing its past and a young player fighting for his future. Golden State is still trying to remain competitive around Steph Curry, and understandably so. But failing to properly develop Kuminga, a player they once hoped could bridge the gap between the dynasty and what comes next, could come back to haunt them. They're not just risking the loss of a dynamic two-way player, they're also hurting their flexibility to chase the next big star if one becomes available. So far, the Warriors haven't blinked. But Kuminga doesn't look like he's backing down either. And if both sides hold firm, the result could be the worst-case scenario. Kuminga walks away for nothing, and the Warriors are left with regret, limited options, and a roster aging fast. A missed opportunity for transition? What makes the situation even more painful for Golden State is that it didn't have to reach this point. Jonathan Kuminga was supposed to be part of the Warriors' future, a bridge between the championship core and the next generation. He's young, athletic, and has flashed real star upside on both ends of the floor. In many ways, he's exactly the kind of player teams dream of developing. But internal decisions may have compromised that potential. Instead of being nurtured, Kuminga often found himself on the margins of the rotation. Kerr leaned heavily on veterans, even in blowouts, while Kuminga sat, waiting for a real chance to prove himself. And when he did get that chance, he responded with high-efficiency scoring, defensive versatility, and a willingness to do the dirty work. Now, Golden State may be paying the price for not seeing it sooner. League-wide reactions and locker room ripples. The ripple effects of this contract saga are being felt across the league. Executives are closely watching how Golden State handles the situation, some with interest, others with skepticism. Rival GMs reportedly see a rare window of opportunity, a high-upside wing with elite physical tools who might be available without a blockbuster trade. Internally, the situation is becoming more delicate. Multiple reports have indicated that some Warriors veterans have tried to advocate for Kuminga behind the scenes, recognizing his value and potential. But there's also tension. Younger players like Moses Moody and even Trace Jackson-Davis are starting to wonder where they stand in the team's hierarchy, and what their future might look like if the current philosophy doesn't shift. Meanwhile, in fan circles, discontent is growing. Warriors fans, long loyal to the franchise, are beginning to question whether the front office is making decisions with an eye toward the long term, or just trying to squeeze out one more run with a core that may no longer have the horsepower. The bigger trade puzzle. This isn't just about Kuminga. His contract is part of a broader strategic equation. Golden State has been linked to several star-level trade scenarios over the past year, from Pascal Siakam to Karl-Anthony Towns to even Brandon Ingram. But in each case, salary matching becomes the bottleneck. Without Kuminga on a mid-sized deal, it's almost impossible for the Warriors to cobble together the necessary contracts unless they give up a cornerstone like Draymond or Klay. And they've been hesitant to do that. Which is why Bobby Marks' point cut so deep. A $22 million Kuminga deal could have been the trade chip that brought in a game-changer. At $8 million, he's still valuable, but not in a way that unlocks the kind of moves the Warriors may need to stay relevant in the Western Conference. What happens next? All signs point to Kuminga signing the qualifying offer, effectively committing to one more year in Golden State while keeping his eyes on 2026 free agency. That puts pressure on both sides. For Kuminga, it's a bet on continued growth despite limited usage. For the Warriors, it's one last chance to either mend the relationship or maximize his value before he walks for nothing. And don't be surprised if the situation heats up again at the trade deadline. If Kuminga plays well early in the season, but minutes remain inconsistent, it could lead to a mid-season move. Teams like the Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, or even the Houston Rockets could re-emerge as potential destinations. All three have the cap flexibility, the young cores, and the developmental culture to let Kuminga flourish. Golden State, on the other hand, will have to decide, are they ready to give him the keys to the next era? Or are they too invested in the past to risk evolving? Final thought. Jonathan Kuminga isn't just another young player frustrated with his role. He's a symbol of what can happen when timelines collide, when a team refuses to let go of its past, and a player refuses to wait on his future. Golden State can still salvage this. They can still sign him to a deal that both rewards his talent and gives the franchise flexibility. But every day that passes without action makes that outcome less likely. And if Kuminga walks, after years of being underutilized and undervalued, it won't just be a personnel loss. It will be a cautionary tale.